Unbroken, the podcast with Madeline Black, healing through storytelling.
Hello and welcome to Unbroken, the podcast with me, Madeline Black, where I am speaking to people that have overcome adversity, and some people really go through more adversity than others. You know that saying, they get knocked down 7 times and stand up 8. Well, today my guest really lives up to that. I'm speaking to Jules White. She is an award-winning international sales consultant with over 30 years of business and sales experience, working in many different sectors, selling everything from baby products to stainless steel to yellow pages. She has also experienced every job role within sales, from telesales through to sales director, and has a wonderful breadth of knowledge and experience to bring to her work. She has also secured investment with Peter Jones in the BBC Dragon's Den, which is the ultimate pitch to win. Her passion and mission is to bring a new outlook and perception to sales in the modern business age which we live, which will truly help you to be unique. Her Live It, Love It, Sell It entrepreneur program is also a book. And now the creation of UHP, Unique Human Proposition, takes it up a gear to deliver this effective methodology to the corporate market too. Her style is passionate, inclusive, and she immerses herself fully into your business in order to work part of your team. Jules's aim is to make sure you create an unparalleled sales experience for all of your customers through you and your unique people. Welcome, Jules. Thank you so much for coming on my show. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm really well, Madeline. Lovely to see you. Thank you for asking me.
Pleasure. So the first question that I ask everyone who comes onto the show is, what does the word unbroken mean to you?
Yeah, I guess really it just means the fact that I truly believe you have a choice as to how you can carry on when you've been hit with adversity. And that choice actually means you're unbroken in essence in that long run. Yeah, I guess that would summarize it best for me.
And when we say hit by adversity, really you've been hit not once, not twice. I mean, it's almost hard to count on one hand. It's many, many times.
Yeah, I think it was the way it happened, felt like it was just one thing after another, as you've described. So, you know, when one bad thing happened, you kind of get up and you start, yeah, I'm okay. And then something else came, a bit like those waves, you know, in the ocean, kept coming over.
We spoke a little bit before, and I said it's really like a catalogue of events that you've been through. It's just a huge list. You know, 1 or 2 of those would be enough to make somebody struggle, but yet you are still positive and smiling and have this wonderful attitude. I guess maybe we should go back to when you appeared on Dragon's Den.
Yes. So, it's a great place to start. I had my son on the 1st of January 2005, so New Year's Day baby, and my life changed. And I know you've got children,
I
so
do. Yes,
you just,
and it does.
and it's just this. It's uncontrollable love almost, isn't it? You know, that you feel for this little baby, and I've always loved him that much since. He's 16 nearly now, but 3 months after he was born, and I was very settled into being a mum, and it was all very happy and easy for me. I was one of the very lucky ones, and I was kind of thinking I need to do something more than just be a mum. You know, that entrepreneurial bit was bubbling. And so I started a business when he was 3 months old, which is complete madness already.
Yeah, really, 3 months old baby, and you're starting a business.
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't really have that thought process, Jules.
Not really. So there's my madness for you from the start. But it was about the fact that I could then be with him more was actually the ultimate aim of this, because it was a party plan business where I sold baby products. So everything was so connected for me. I thought, this is great. You know, I can be with Sam and make money. And of course, what happened really was that the business grew and was successful, which meant
I love how you say, of course. I've no doubt it wouldn't grow and be successful. It's just such belief. It's brilliant.
I think the belief in that particular product for me was huge, but sadly it meant I didn't see Sam the way I wanted to, but I allowed a lot of other mums to see their children, so it was wonderful. But 2 months after I started the business, I saw an advert on my computer screen for Dragon's Den, it just popped up, and it was only the second series, Madeline. This was 2005. And I thought, oh, I really enjoyed watching those entrepreneurs in the first series, completely petrified in that den. I'll apply.
That would be the part that would stop me from applying, completely
Yeah.
petrified.
Yeah, so I applied, and I filled it all in, and I was smiling, thinking I'll never hear back from these. And the same morning, the BBC called me, and within 2 weeks, I was pitching in front of these 5 wealthy dragons. So
And not much time to prepare, really.
no, it was very spontaneous. I mean, I knew it was a 3-minute pitch. I worked out what I thought I needed to include in that pitch just from my sales experience. But really, that was it. The business had been going for about 3 months. 4 months, I would say, really, it had done. And, you know, there was no time for me to tell them what figures I'd really done, because there hadn't been much business done.
Because they always like the number crunching, don't they?
Yeah.
That's where they always pull them down. What do you mean you're making this much? How can you project that? Blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
And you know what? I rolled my figures off, Madeline. You'd have been so proud of me. However, I think they were a bit pie in the sky, actually, because we were just guessing, you know. But yeah, it was great. And I was in front of them for 2.5 hours, and you get 14 minutes on the programme when you actually see it. But I had offers from Theo, Paphitis and Peter. They were bidding against each other to invest in the business.
What an amazing position to be in.
Amazing.
2 dragons bidding for you.
Yeah, and I couldn't quite believe it, but it all went off, and I shook hands with Peter Jones, and off we went. 6 months later, it actually got shown on the telly. So there's that big gap where you can't tell anyone. And equally, they don't get in touch with you for some time. But when they did, the contracts weren't how they should be. My solicitor said don't sign them. So I never really did the deal.
But you're still a winner. You're still a Dragon's Den.
Yeah. Went on to run the business, and then by year 3 of the business, having taken on a new investor, we turned over £1 million. We had 432 consultants across the country doing the parties, inquiries from America, Australia and Europe. So I was sat there thinking, oh my goodness, this really was a great idea, as I thought it was, you know. I was absolutely exhausted. I'd worked 20 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3 years, you know.
With a baby.
With a baby. Yeah. And I just was tired, but also driven to that next bit, Madeline, of look, this could be big. What do we do next? But we hadn't put any of the foundations in that we needed, not really, to run that scale of business. And so the investor gave an offer of more money, uncapped, so second level of investment, but she wanted 75% of the business.
It's a big chunk, huh?
This was the first bolt, really, out of the blue, because I didn't expect it. But for me, then I would be working for her. I wouldn't own my business any longer, you know. So there was really big things to think about. I basically said no, and she had the money and I didn't. So she closed the business down into administration, and then she bought it back and opened it a couple of days later as Truly Madly Baby Dragon's Den winner. So to the outside world, not a lot would change at that moment, but I lost everything in that overnight period. Everything went.
Oh, it's a very tough time, really to be so let down as well.
Yeah, there was lots of emotional elements to it, I think. The big thing, Madeline, I think to say to everybody was I felt a grief.
Yeah, well, it's a huge loss, isn't it? You built this up.
Yeah.
It was snatched away.
And attached to my son, because he was kind of the catalyst for it all starting. So it's very personal, you know, very personal.
But your mum always told you she believed in karma, didn't she?
She said to me, Jules, you don't need to do a thing, she said, because karma will prevail. And it was so calmly, you know, my mum was very calm and very strong. And I just looked at her and I was so tired. I just said, yeah, Mum, you're right. I'm going to stop now and see what happens.
And I guess a very tough way to learn a lot of business lessons.
Yes. Yeah, very tough.
You learned a lot from that experience.
I did, yeah. I definitely did, yeah.
And not long after that, your mum gets ill. She develops breast cancer, doesn't she?
Yeah. So we had I'd lost the business in May, and then the first thing that happened was that I became pregnant. So I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have another baby. And in some ways it was a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. So I was like, well, maybe this is the next thing I'm going to do. So there was a lot of hope around that baby. You know, you can imagine the big hope. And then within days, Mum came back and said she'd had a lump, which they'd confirmed was cancer. Yeah. So she had a breast cancer. Very mixed feelings. And then mum had her lumpectomy. So she was lucky it wasn't in her lymph glands. She had the operation. I went to visit her in hospital, and on the day I visited, I started a miscarriage and was taken straight into A&E. And I think losing that baby, albeit it was early on, made me realise not only how difficult miscarriage is, and I totally underestimated miscarriage, and I've got to be brutally honest. I never thought for a minute it would be that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, those words make me cringe when I say them, Madeline.
Yeah, and until you've had one, and until we speak about them, we don't realise how common they are. It's like 1 in 4 pregnancies will result in miscarriage. So that's 25% of women will, lose a baby, and it's all the hopes. And I wonder what they would be now, or who they would be. All these questions that never really go away, do they?
No, that's so true. And I think for me as well, I was losing it naturally. So it was just too late to actually go and have an operation of any sorts. I had to go through that process, which I'm sure many women have had too. And it's that losing process, which was really quite devastating, I remember, So yeah, that was hard time. Do you know, I must just tell you, the same time mum was in and I was in hospital, my little boy, who at the time was 3 probably, wasn't he, was in hospital with an asthma attack.
Oh my gosh.
It was
by halves, really, do you?
Honestly, and my husband at the time, I think, was just going around the hospital doing the rounds, seeing everybody, So yeah.
You say your husband at the time, because your marriage did eventually break down, didn't it?
Yeah, so by the 2009 in the March, my marriage ended. So we'd had sort of loss of business, mum's illness, miscarriage, and then loss of my marriage. And at 40 in the April of 2009, I certainly didn't write my story that I would be divorced, on the way to being divorced, a single mum, bankrupt and jobless.
It wasn't that you had planned for,
No, it wasn't. So I literally had to go out and just start again and get a job, and that was the deal.
What did you do? Where did you work?
Well, I went to a job agency first of all, which I'd not ever really done before. Maybe once I'd done it, and just said, what jobs are out there? I was almost prepared to do anything just so I could work, which was very hard on the ego, Madeline. I must say to you.
Especially if you've had this multi-million-pound business, and now you'll do anything, minimum wage job, anything.
I know. And I had a little boy, and for me, he was the priority. I had to work for him, if nothing else. So yeah, I got a job through an agency, and the job that I wanted, which sounded wonderful, they came back straight away and said they didn't want me. So there was another blow in I was like, why don't you want me when I've got this amazing experience? Without sounding big-headed, I knew I'd got great experience for the role. They wanted someone from the industry. So I said to the recruitment agency, go back next week. If they haven't got anyone, tell them they've got to see me. So I pushed, I just pushed over those few little boundaries, and they sure enough did. And they said, we'll see you. And I got the job.
Brilliant.
So, that was a really nice moment in that pushing was worthwhile, So I did that for some years. But in the meantime, my mum, a couple of years later, got really poorly again. And within 3 months, we'd lost her. She had an advanced bile duct cancer.
Just layers and layers of grief, really, isn't it? And because loss is really grief, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very hard. And it was 3 years after that, then I lost my dad, which was not a bigger blow at all. It was a very different experience, but again, it was within 3 months.
But you became a team, didn't you, once your mum died?
Yeah, we did.
You really looked after your dad, and a different kind of relationship, I would imagine, with your mum no longer there.
Very much. And Dad was the one who picked the phone up and said, do you want your mum? When I called, do you want your mum? There was no conversation with him as such, but we were very close and very alike, and we became closer. We were going to buy a house together. I was on my own and he was on his own, So, it was a very, very sad time. I think losing Dad was that ultimate of, you're on your own now, Jules. I felt very much like I really was on my own at that point.
Well, you were. It was just you and Sam, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where does this positivity come from?
I think it comes from probably my mum and dad, really, in all honesty, because of the way they brought me up and the love they surrounded me with. And my dad was very much about there's no such word as can't. That's his little phrase that and legacy that he left. And I feel like that's just lived on very much so. Every time I doubted, I would say, what would Dad say? Or what would even Mum say? Because she was as positive.
Hear his voice ringing in your ears, in your mind.
And there it was. And it was almost that these people were people I just didn't want to let down, even though they were no longer here. I still feel like they're around me very much.
Kind of like a living legacy to your parents.
Yeah, I think so.
For me and Sam, I'm doing it for my mum and dad.
Yeah, I think so. So that was very helpful in my outlook. And also, you know, I have a very big thing about the fact that what happened to me is nothing to the stories I hear and see from other people.
You know what, as you know, I'm also a psychotherapist. I don't believe it's about what happens to us, it's what we do with it. Somebody could have one of your traumas and it could wreck their life, or somebody could have 10 times more and they'll be okay. So it's really, I think about what we do with our attitude that we bring to our recovery. And yeah, yours has just always been one of positivity, which has obviously helped you to get where you are. And I want to talk about your TEDx as well, because your dad said there's no such word as can't. Again, you like to do things on very short notice.
Wasn't that incredible story? You know, I was
watch it, by the way, because I love your TEDx. It's great.
Oh, thank you. I love yours too, Madeline. Not just because you said that, but it's a wonderful talk that you give. I think for me, TEDx was on that list. You know, in the future, it was like, oh, I'd like that one day, but it was never a belief I'd probably ever get one. And I spoke at an event where the guy who's the curator for Brighton TEDx was actually at the event, and he heard me speak. And there were 60 people at this event. It wasn't a big event, and I never went to him and said, I really want a TEDx talk. You know, I didn't do that. I wanted to, but I didn't do it. I just connected with him. We subtly exchanged messages and got to know each other. Literally, I got a text which said, you've got 7 days, are you in?
Oh, so he invited you. I had to do an application form on my second one I got in. You were invited.
Amazing, honestly. And Brighton is invitation only, which I later found out. I never knew. And I'd got a ticket to go and watch it. That's literally what was happening, is I was just going to watch in the audience, and I got this text and I just said, are you joking? And he said, no. So a lady was sick and she couldn't do her talk.
I was going to say, because that's not much time to prepare. I had a good 10 weeks and they gave us a coach, and every week I met with my coach. So I was really well rehearsed.
Yeah.
A week, that would scare me.
Yeah, it was scary. I mean, I said the answer's yes, what's the question kind of, you know, response. But
and this is why I resonate with you so much. Whatever, just say yes, because you never know what doors it opens.
Well, that's it, isn't
it? And say, oh my God, why did I say yes? But yeah, I love it.
Yeah, well, and I see that in you as well, watching your journey, Madeline. And I think for me, it was like I had a call with the guy and I said, look, what can you help me with? What do I do? And he just said, just tell your story for the audience. And it was literally, that's what he said. And so that's what I knew I had to do. So I did tell my story. And of course it was easy because I knew my story. So in some senses that was okay, but it was linking it back then to the audience so that they connected and took something away. And the last bit of the TEDx, I have to tell you, my son gave me.
And I love the last bit of your TEDx. It's beautiful. Want to maybe, tell us what happened at the last bit?
Well, I'd got my story, I'd got the order of it, chronologically, etc. And then I said to Sam, I don't know how to end this. And he just sat there. And bear in mind, he was probably 14 at the time then. And he went, I know. Like this. And I went, what? And he said, you did a post the other day, Mum, and it said, one day or day one. Like this. And I went, oh yeah, I remember that was nice. That's the ending, like this. And I went, oh okay, but how and he wrote it out. So I now want you to close your eyes and imagine something you're scared to do. That whole last piece he wrote on a piece of paper. My son wrote the last bit of my TEDx talk.
And it is so powerful. It's so simple and it's so powerful. Is this one day, or is it going to be day one?
Day one,
Which always comes back to, well, we always have a choice. And
exactly.
It comes down to us. When are we going to take responsibility? We can't wait for, I'll go for a run when it's sunny, or I'll wait till I have a partner or a new car or better hair, or whatever we tell ourselves, will only happen if this ... happens. But actually, we can take ownership. It's down to us.
Yeah, totally. And I think what's really nice is when I get messages about the TEDx, which I still do because it was 2 years ago now, and people say, oh, I've just watched your talk and today is day one.
Oh.
And I go, oh, this is great.
It is day one starting. But actually, the start of your TEDx is very lovely as well. Can you tell us the story that you use at the start? You use a little snippet from someone else's TEDx.
Yeah, I do. I use, and actually, apparently, lots of people know the story, and I'd never heard it. But Benjamin Zander, who's the most wonderful conductor, has a TED talk, and I think it's called The Transformational Power of Music, or classical music, and you must look it up. It's a wonderful talk.
We've needed music more than ever in lockdown.
Yes, yes, and so this TEDx that he does, he starts with the story of the traveling salespeople going to Africa to sell shoes, and one writes back and says, hopeless situation, these people don't wear shoes. And the other one writes back and says, wonderful opportunity, these people don't wear shoes. And of course, it's such a great demonstration of how attitude and, choice and how we see things. I just love it as a demonstration.
It was a fantastic way to start it, because it just opens up, well, where do we put our attention? Well, what do we focus on? Do we focus on what we don't have, or do we focus on what we can have, or what we have already? So it was everything. It was opportunity, it was dreaming, it was choice, it was gratitude. It was perfect way to start it.
Yeah, thank you. It was lovely, and I love his talk, as I say, so you must look that up. So
it's a good one. So where are you at now in your life? What are you doing with yourself now?
Oh gosh, so happy, so contented with who I am and what I'm doing. I feel like I finally found, the thing I really wanted to do all my life. And
how do you know that you are, so happy and so content? What changed within you?
Well, I think it probably started once Dad died, in all honesty, which was back end of 2015. And so I think that was just the conversation we had before he died, where he said, you're just going to go and do great things, Jules. You've just got to do all the things you want to do, And so when I got a redundancy the year after, I had 3 months' money. And I thought, I am not working for anyone again.
That as a positive. Oh, I'm great being made redundant. I can take some time off.
And I just knew I wasn't happy doing what I'd been doing. I've been sort of plodding on doing sales stuff for different companies and jumping around. I wasn't settling anywhere. So this money meant I could start a business, and I was just going to do coaching generally. And then my old boss from Yellow Pages said, Jules, you need to do sales. You're great at it. But I knew I didn't want to do sales the way I'd been taught, that traditional transactional selling. So I created a methodology, Live It, Love It, Sell It, which was the journey of how we sell in that human way, human connection and relationships and conversations and everything I love in life,
There's kind of paradox there, isn't it? Because you are, your business is about human relations, but your relationship with yourself through that process improved.
Oh, so much, yeah. And it's taken a long time, actually, for me to really like myself and be confident about who I am and not worry about what everybody else thinks anymore, Taken a long time. Good. But I really feel like I've reached that place,
Yeah, and what next then? Where are you going with it all?
Well, I think for me, I've got another book I'm writing, which is a very personal book, and it's very much around bounce back ability, which was part of the TEDx talk. So it's relevant to the chat we've even had today. And so that's a lovely little project on the side. But for me, it's just about continuing this work of helping people with their businesses and just believing that it's about them and how unique they are. That's the biggest asset, I think, in your business. And I started a membership through the lockdown, which of course allows me to work with even more people on their terms, So yeah, I should just keep evolving, Madeline, I think, and enjoying the journey, It's great.
And the book, when do we hope to
pick it
up on the bookshelves or order online?
I think maybe April next year. Maybe I'll do it as my birthday. My birthday's April, so maybe I'll try for a birthday book. But I want to just write that in the right time frame and take my time to make it what I want it to be.
So will it be kind of part memoir, part kind of business, kind of self-help book?
Yeah, it is definitely going to be great for the reader because I think it will inspire them and get them to understand about bounce back ability and feeling unbroken even, Madeline, you know.
Well, really, when I kind of did my little trailers for this show, I talk about it's not just about people that have bounced back, but have bounced forward. So you have definitely bounced forward. You have an amazing bounce back ability, and it's really important, I think, to let people know, despite all your losses and all the grief, you can bounce back.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think the other thing about the book is it's actually connected very much to mum and dad. So I actually, I talked to my mum and dad quite a bit in the writing of the book, which is really quite special.
So you feel, even from beyond the grave, that they're helping you to write this.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, it's
I love
almost that, I think it's almost the things I want to say to them now if they were still here, if that makes sense, having learned what I've learned on my journey. So.
That must be quite a moving experience to be writing this book. It must be, yeah, quite a process.
Yeah, it is. But it's a really cathartic and positive one. So it's good.
And what is your writing routine? Because I know a lot of authors, so I always like to find out their routine. Do you like the music on? Do you like it peaceful? Or do you write at night, in the morning? Do you have to be wearing lucky pants? And everybody's got all these different routines. What does your writing routine look like?
It's lovely. Mine's probably a bit more sporadic than that, but I think it's definitely quiet to
So
write.
Your pants are not a plotter,
Yeah,
as they call it.
yeah. I need it to be quiet, definitely, because I immerse myself in the writing. But I also like to write quite late on in the evening because I'm good at night. You know, I'm a night owl.
Yes.
But I do have a book coach and I have a book plan. So actually, there's an element of planning to it. It's not all messy. There's a bit of both. Yeah, yeah. So it's great.
Brilliant. So as we're kind of nearing the end, any tips for anybody right now that's really struggling, or, you know, because as we know with lockdown, corona, there's a lot of loss for people, and your story really, whatever happened to you, it's really all to do with loss. How can they find their bounce back ability right now?
Well, you know, I created an acronym of BOUNCE from bounce back ability because it was shorter, because bounce back ability is a big one.
Yes.
But it's all around things like just stopping and breathing. You know, I think a lot of the time when we have loss and we have trauma, we can go into panic. We can suddenly try and take action because we think that's what we've got to do. And when I lost all of my elements in the story, I did stop and I was breathing. The B was breathe, you know. And just understanding actually what your opportunities are and who you are and what choices you have. And also the necessities that you need to continue to do. Because this is the other thing lockdown's taught all of us, I think. What's really necessary in our lives. Isn't it lovely how we've simplified things?
Yes.
And equally, I think finally that E of bounce is very much about energy for me. Surrounding yourself with the right energy. Because that's very, very important.
And that can mean the right people, really, can't it?
Yeah.
People that will lift you up rather than drag you down.
Yeah, they say people come for a reason, a season or a lifetime, don't they, Madeline? And there's nothing more true than that for me. So yeah, I think that's very important. But be kind to yourself is probably the big one, isn't it? Just be kind.
It won't go out today, but today actually is World Kindness Day. So
it is.
That is a fantastic message. Be kind to ourselves and definitely be kind to others, because my very first guest was Mike Haynes, and he said no act of kindness is ever too small. It never goes unnoticed. You know, just a smile to someone could make the whole difference to their day.
Yeah, absolutely right. I love that.
Oh, well, what a beautiful place to end. So I just really want to thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find out about you if they want to know more about you?
Yeah, well, I think if you remember Live It, Love It, Sell It, and you put that into our friend Google, you'll probably find all of the places where I hang out. I've obviously got podcasts myself, website, book, etc. So just put Live It, Love It, Sell It into Google and you can definitely find me. I think I've given you a link. Yeah,
you have, and I'll pop it into the show notes as well. So people.
Thanks, Madeline.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Unbroken, the podcast, with Madeline Black, playing now on all the main platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher for Android, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and here. Play Unbroken, the podcast. with Madeline Black.